then need to distribute the grade R resource packs, make sure that's happened, monitor that what is happening at the school makes sense, and support the schools. Right, now we come to the PEDs, what happens? And the first thing we need to know is that there are two models for the delivery of grade R. Okay, there's a school-based model and there's a community-based model. Now, when we talk about universal access to grade R, what do we mean, given these two models? Do we mean that everybody must have access at a school, or must everybody have access to a grade R facility? It's the latter, okay?
Yeah.
So, how much space for grade R must the school where I'm on the school governing body provide? And if you ask the education department in Gauteng, they will tell you the number of places in the school must equal the grade 1 class. What does that tell you? They don't understand the policy. Because within the residential area I live in, there are maybe 15 community-based grade R sites. And so the first thing you need to do when you are at a school, you need to establish what is happening within your catchment area. How many community-based sites are there? Some people in our governing body says, look, this is a money-spinning opportunity. We just use the 60,000 Rand that we'll get to cross-subsidize our grade R, and we will outcompete all the community-based sites. Is that what we want to do? Concentrate all the children in classes of 30 to 40, whilst they could be in community-based sites where the teacher ratio is 1 to 15. Do we want to undermine people's livelihoods where they're earning an income by providing grade R, and then we take that away by providing it at a school-based site? And these are things that we need to sort out in our thinking as to what is the strategy we're going to use to deliver this. Okay, so you form partnerships.
So before you move on,
yeah.
I think it's critical, the latter that you've just uttered now, that if a school is having a grade R class,
yeah, that
has an impact on their intake for the grade 1s.
Yeah.
Whether or not they decide to just take the money and do the grade R's as a hush-hush kind of a process. Because the learners that are in the community, in the grade R, will have to come to that particular school for grade 1. Yeah. So if the content that has been dealt with in those centers, the school has no idea of what they are doing, then it still poses a problem for the school.
Yeah.
So forming partnership actually works better, because then they have an understanding of what work is done.
Look, there is a grade R curriculum, and the education department is supposed to be monitoring the community sites. But as a school, I would say that it's in the interests of the school to make sure that that monitoring is actually happening. Yeah. And therefore, that one forms a partnership with the feeder grade R's that are going to be in the community. One also needs to establish the very firm point that just because you're in the school grade R site doesn't give you automatic access to grade 1. Okay, because we still need to adhere to feeder areas, your catchment areas. And you've got a first obligation as a school to the pupils in your catchment area. It's a tough one. Trust me. Grade R infrastructure at the school, appointing the grade R educators, making sure there is LTSM. Then you have grade R happens, and the management needs to be ensuring that that is happening according to the curriculum, that the children are being given the opportunities that grade R is supposed to be giving them. And then the whole question of after-school care and what we do with the children after 12:30. Okay. Now that gives you the elements of the program, and that's probably the most difficult part of this process, is deciding if it's CAPS, what are the elements of the program? If it's ANA, what is the elements of the program? If it's LTSM, one we haven't done, what are the elements of the program? Okay, and once you've done that, then it becomes relatively easy. You then look at inputs. What do you require to do policy development? If you take something along here, establish capacity, what are the inputs in that process? You need HR specialists that tell you, yeah, you need a director's post for this purpose. And then senior management needs to make the appointment. That's why they're there. They're an input into the process. Okay, so then you have your processes. This is for policy development. So, we do some stakeholder consultation, we do some piloting, we do some drafting of grade R policy documents. We then have an intermediate output. Okay, this is a bit of a new term, intermediate. It's before the final output. And basically that intermediate output is the output of this element of the program. So if we want policy development, the intermediate output will be overall policy for grade R. Am I right? Okay, no, not much debate there. Let's take another one. Go to the school. Okay, the first one. Partnerships with C sites. What is our activities there? We need a designated grade R coordinator at the school that is going to go and visit the community sites. We need standard DBE grade R partnerships agreements and monitoring tools. Do those exist? Not yet. We still need to produce them. Okay? We then look at the process. Determine the number of grade R places the school needs to provide. That's easy. You look at your grade 1 class. If it's 100 children, then you need at least 100 grade R sites, places, either within the school or within the community. You then go and identify those community sites that are providing grade R, and you enter into partnerships agreements with them. Okay, this is also monitoring their activities. During the year you have spot visits. You go and check whether the quality is still up to standard, whether you will want those pupils in your grade 1 class. And the output, the intermediate output from that process is grade R community sites integrated into school-based provision of grade R. In other words, you have a single seamless system between what is being provided at the school and what is being provided in the community. Do you want me to go through another one? You're getting the picture. You plan the things from the bottom up. Okay, let's look at the distribution of grade R packs. That's very easy. Do you have the resource packs? Do you have a distribution plan? Activities, take the packs to the schools. Okay? All eligible grade R classes given resource packs. Okay. Much of this is just process. You've just got to apply your mind and do it. Okay. So there's nothing, you know, people say M&E, oh, you need specialist qualifications. No, you need common sense. Okay, and that's really all it is. You need common sense. Okay, let's take this a step further. Firstly, two things I'll put here. Policy development is fairly straightforward. Okay, that's national domain, they consult with the provinces, but has the implementation planning been done? Okay, and I looked for it for each of these programs, CAPS, etc. And it was either partly there or not there. Okay, that the implementation planning was expected to be done at the provincial level. And so Western Cape did grade R one way, Eastern Cape did it another way. We're not quite sure if Free State has done it. And, you know, we've got a wide variation in approaches. Because National Department also needs to get beyond the island of we only do policy and move into the processes of ensuring that implementation planning is happening, that monitoring of processes and systems is happening. And you'll see this when I come back to the outputs. What do we want from the National Department? And I can bet you, for National, the current output is a well-designed grade R policy. Okay, but that, from a systems perspective, is not what we want. National needs to make sure that DBE and PDEs with required staff, systems and processes to manage the implementation of grade R. That is what we require from National to manage, not just the policy. And this is where we need to have a very hard debate about the difference between autonomy and cooperative governance. Last time I checked my constitution, and I've actually done this, the word autonomous does not appear once in the constitution. Not with reference to provincial departments, not with reference to any body within government, not even the Auditor General. The word independent only applies with regards to the judiciary and with regards to the Chapter 9 institutions. It is never used in relation to provincial government. The words interrelated, interdependent, and there's one other, I've forgotten it, are used with regards to provincial government and national government. And there's an entire chapter that deals with cooperative governance. And so, and I came across this, you know, I've been sort of doing a little bit of research on the education sector and the health sector. And the provinces, I'm independent, we're autonomous, etc. And I go, which country are you living in? You know, particularly, you know, other side, which is the Hicks River Mountains. Okay. And we need to see that this is a national policy. It requires national systems to implement it. We require, and this is where the Department of Education needs to move a step forward. Section, I think it's 47 of the Constitution, allows national government to set national norms and standards. Those norms that are essential for the uniform delivery of services across the country. those norms and standards can be used to bring those DGs into line, those HODs at the provincial level into line. We've used them once in education. That was the national norms and standards for the funding of schools. Very effective program. I remember sitting in a budget council meeting with the Minister of Finance, the former Minister of Finance, and we put up the funding of schools levels of all the provinces, one next to the other. And Eastern Cape was like 20% below the norm. And at that stage they were building Kucha. And the Minister of Finance said to the MEC, MEC, explain the 20% difference between what you're allocating to fund school pupils and the budget for Kucha. What's the relationship? And the MEC said, no, there's no relationship. You know, the Kucha's got dedicated funding. We're just not able to mobilize enough funding for the school sector. And the Minister of Finance says, but there it is. Shift it. Move it across. You will fund schools according to the norms. Now, are there any other norms? Okay, we need to start getting them from the education sector so that we can use them to bring some discipline into the sector. Okay. So, if you look at the output there, the output is not a grade R policy. It's a grade R system that is working. And so you need to start managing from a systems perspective. If we go across, for the education department, this is the head office, what is their aim? Universal provision of grade R in adequate school and seaside facilities that are properly, and we've got to move across there, staffed and where service quality is monitored and managed. And again, you can see the systems perspective coming through. And then finally, at a school level, what do you have? You have equitable, universal access to grade R within the school's catchment area. Okay, now the temptation is for the national department to make this their objective, their output. We want to produce universal, equitable access to grade R. Do they produce that? No. And yes. Okay. You're not directly responsible for that. That is produced at a school level. You produce the system that will ensure that that happens. And so when you come to managing and monitoring performance, what do we monitor? Well, if we're monitoring the national department, we need to check whether they're putting in place the system. When we're monitoring the school, we need to monitor whether there's universal access within that catchment area. Are you getting the difference? And this has this change in perspective has a fundamental impact about how you report and how you manage and monitor performance. But if we take it that way, right, I don't want to, I mean, the outputs are there and the outcomes are there as well, improvement in the quality of basic education and so on. But let's unpack this and say, okay, what are the performance measures linked to these things? Okay? How do we measure whether DBE has done their job? Well, there's an overall evaluation of DBE grade R policies, systems and processes. Are they good or bad? If I had to read your policy documents, what is my opinion of them? Okay, I'm not a grade R specialist, so I wouldn't take my opinion of them, but you get a grade R specialist to do that. The number and percentages of schools with a grade R ratio is less than 1. What does that tell you? They're not providing enough grade R in their catchment area. Okay, if there are fewer grade R places than there are grade 1 places, the ratio will be less than 1, and therefore you've got a deficit in your grade R provision. Number of percentage of schools with adequate grade R infrastructure. These are all measures, and you can go across them, that tell you whether your output is being delivered. Okay, but more interesting, you can go down to your processes, and for some of them it's useful to measure processes. Okay, here we're talking about established capacity. Have the people been appointed? It's no use having vacant posts. You know, we say the provincial departments must establish the capacity. Well, check if the appointments have been made. Yeah. Any questions on this? And then if you want to, where do you get that information? You can then unpack it further and you say the data source. That's where the information comes from. So where it says MI, it's James Bond will give you the information. No, it's management information systems. Okay. That comes from normal monitoring of performance contracts and things like that. Okay. Yes?
Yeah. In most cases, let me start by saying we are having a unit, I think even here at DBE, which is still active in the province, which is called the district coordination.
Yeah.
And myself coming from strategic planning section where they are supposed to report on what is the role of district coordination unit in the provinces, is difficult to an extent that when you are talking about the role of DBE, province, district and schools, maybe an example in terms of what is it that they're supposed to do in the delivery of grade R or the provision of grade R.
Okay.
Now I was thinking about the role that that particular unit should play in order to assist the district and also the school in the provision of grade R. And what they usually do is that when they get the report, because they call themselves a district coordination, they will get the report from district A, B, C, D, and bring them as is and say this is district coordination report.
Yeah, so they're a district post office.
Yeah.
We find lots of those types of officials in government. And that is not management, and we pay them management salaries. We need to understand that there is a monitoring and support role for the district, for the provincial offices. If we look at this, let's just hide some of this information again. See? Okay? And we go to the district office, the provincial office. You've got here 3 roles that district coordination unit should be playing. You've got training of district staff, so that everybody's playing from the same song sheet. Okay, so you need to be training the district staff. Secondly, there's monitoring and evaluation. And those people shouldn't just be the district post office. They need to compile those reports that they receive, indicate what intervention is required, and then they need to be providing that intervention through what we call support to the districts and schools. You know, it's a challenge because we have so many of these post offices and they're supplying information. That information is useless. In fact, it has a negative value to the department because somebody had to collect it. We've got to pay the post office to receive it, and then we do nothing with it. And so we might as well close them down unless they're going to start doing their job, which is taking the information and reacting to it in a way that is going to improve the system. And that's their job. And so this is why we have this support to district schools, that you have monitoring of the information, that's an input. Education managers, people that are not just post officers but are actually managers. They need to monitor grade R performance in the districts and the schools and develop a support program as it is needed. And if they're not doing that, then they're failing in their job. And how do we know whether they're doing that? Well, the national department then monitors this. Let's unpack it.
My question would be, what was the rationale in terms of setting that kind of structure in the first place? Because that's what is supposed to be guiding the whole process. And what are the functions? You know, all those things that should be guiding those officials in different provinces. And if you look at that, compare it, comparing Limpopo with other provinces, are the functions the same? Because at the end of the day, all the information needs to be monitored at the national level. So those people who are there should be able to understand each and every section within. Because this whole thing, well, I'm looking at the report here, and maybe that's why I'm really reacting in this manner.
You're distracted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to close my other eye so that I don't look at the report first. But it can't be. It can't be just reporting on work that is done by districts, and that person is there 20 days, a month, or more. Just doing that.
Yeah.
And then you call that is what. That's why I'm starting it from the beginning, to say when you set up that kind of a structure, for you to be able to do work on a daily basis, there should be something that you are working from. To say this is why this was established and so forth.
This is your job description, this is your role, etc. Now this comes back to the point that I made about implementation planning, that we've done the policy development. And let me be complimentary. I think the grade R policies are very nicely written, they're clear, etc. Okay, so I don't have a problem with the policy. But where I find, and looking at the history of grade R in this country, where I find an enormous gap is implementation planning. And the provinces and national have not sat down together and said, how are we going to take this forward? And if I were to ask the national department, where is the intermediate output of this process? What is that? It's a coherent, phased, costed implementation plan for grade R infrastructure, educators, LTSM, and other costs covering both national and provincial departments' roles. Does that exist? And the answer is no. Parts of it exist, bits in here and there. And so really the challenge that I'm putting out, and this goes for every single one of the policies that I reviewed, okay, that's only 4, is we need to do a lot more of this kind of thinking. And then we need to take this kind of thinking into implementation and monitoring so that we check, are the district officers established? Do they understand their roles and responsibilities? That's communication. Are they doing their job? Okay, and that's where we get into program performance, information monitoring and evaluation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.